order for 0 South Main Street, where it is a rezone from C2 general commercial to M2 multifamily high density. And this is the one we passed with ordinance, or that we did. It's ordinance 2022-006. If there is anybody here to speak on behalf of this rezone, please come forward. Do we need name? Do we need his name and all that? I believe you mentioned the first reading. Is that right? No, this is a third reading tonight. Yeah.
Okay, I am here to...
Your name, well, I'll need your name and address afterwards.
Okay,
Thank you.
I wrote it on the paper. I can just hand it in.
Great, thank you.
My name is David Bayless. I'm here on behalf of that zoning amendment. Just wanted to introduce myself. One of the principles of provision living, an assisted living, and independent living community. And our plan is to build just that on that parcel. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Would you explain to the rest of the body the location?
Yes, it's on 0 South Main, which is on the corner of, it's on the corner of Township Road, 145 Township Road in South Main, basically all the way down, next to the other senior housing community.
Directly north of the South Side
Right next
restaurant.
to the Rib Place.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
I was a little worried about saying that, but yes, that's why we're there.
and east of the existing, is that Primrose down there?
Yeah, I know where he's...
Yes.
Any other
and-
questions from council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your consideration.
Is there anyone here to speak against this rezone? Seeing those, there's none, a motion to close this, adjourn this public hearing. Mr. Baumann, second. Mr. Wisner, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. And we are adjourned.
How do you say your last name?
It is 7 o'clock, and we will call this February 15th, 2022 meeting of the Findlay City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baumann,
Here.
Mr. Greeno,
Here.
Mr. Hellman,
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer, Mr. Palmer,
Here.
Mr. Russell,
Here.
Mr. Slough,
Here.
Ms. Warnicki,
Here.
Mr. Wisner,
Here.
and Mr. Wobser.
And Council President Harrington and Councilman Wobser informed us that they were going to be absent for this meeting. I'd accept a motion for their excused. Mr. Slough, second. Mr. Baumann, all in favor of excusing John and Jeff. Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will start tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. We need acceptance of I don't think it was the January 1st meeting. It was February 1st. Oh my gosh, we're already in February. Mr. Slough,
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of the last regular session of council.
thank you for covering for me, Mr. Slough. Second, Mr. Palmer, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. We have no add-ons or replacements, no proclamations, recognitions or retirements, petitions or oral communications, written communications.
An update from Tricia Velasic, Executive Director of Raise the Bar.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
A letter from Stephanie Rhodes, Project Leader for National Church Residents for the Blanchard House.
Questions or comments? For new council's information, this is a very standard thing when we have a development under this style, and we have two of them this month. They have to inform council that they are, or the city, that they're doing this development, and we have an opportunity to weigh in on it if we so choose. Letter be filed.
Letter from the developer of Penrose LLC, Amber Seeley Marks, regarding a 45-unit low-income housing tax credits, OHFA's Housing Development Loan Program for 0 Birchhaven Lane.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed. Reports of municipal officers and municipal departments.
Findlay Fire Department Activities Report for January 2022.
Questions or comments? Report be filed.
City Income Tax Monthly Collections Report for January 2022.
Questions or comments? Reports be filed.
Findlay Police Departmental Activities Report for January 2022.
Questions or comments? Reports be filed.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for January 2022.
Questions or comments? Report be filed.
Officer Shareholders Disclosure Form from the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control for Axe Ventura LLC, doing business as Axe Ventura at 401 South Main Street for a D1 and D2 liquor permit. The check of the records show no criminal record for those that applied.
Can I ask a question?
Council, the question, please.
Is this the axe throwing place?
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to combine that with liquor?
That's what this request is for.
That's what I thought.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Hellman.
Is there, are there any other axe throwing facilities like this in the state that serve alcohol? To me, this just doesn't seem to be like a wise thing to do, but I just wondered if anybody ever checked to see whether or not, there's none or a plethora of these things across the state.
Mayor.
This is consistent with other business models. I'm not sure if any of you have been there, but they do have a number of safety measures in place, distance requirements, safety trainings that occur before it, and they do have standards around your intoxication level. So obviously these individuals, the business has liability insurance, and so they also have a vested interest in making sure they're creating a safe environment. So I don't think that this is unusual, though I do see the humor and concern related to it.
Other questions? Mr. Slough.
Well, I guess what you say has merit. So does that mean that if somebody wanted to open up a bar in a firing range, that they would be able to do so?
No, that's illegal. You can't be handling firearms and be drinking alcohol at the same time, and the police could testify.
But you-
So like, if, for example, if you have a concealed carry, you're not allowed to be drinking when you are carrying. So there are restrictions around that.
But you're allowed to throw an axe, but you can't, a deadly weapon, but you can't shoot a gun. Okay.
Other questions?
I don't think we're here to say whether it's right or wrong. It's the Department of Liquor that kind of controls that. We're just here to check to see if they have any issues with applying for the application or standing.
My understanding of the, we are allowed to issue or send the Ohio Liquor Control our concerns or vote, and, you know, they see recorded our votes. Previously on council, Councilman Monday would always vote against every liquor permit, so all of our numbers were always 9-1. I don't believe it ever changed any liquor permit being granted. I know we had this discussion before, what would happen if we would recommend against, and I believe, Don, you thought that would have no net effect?
Correct. We've been down there, that road several years ago when they were collecting cocaine in the bars,
So, in essence, we are going through the motions. This does require a vote of council. All those in favor of, requires a motion.
To accept it.
If there is anybody in a motioning mood. Mr. Palmer.
I move that no objection be filed.
Second, Mr. Baumann. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Two.
Yes.
No, I've got a comment to make. I guess I'd just like the record to show that Councilman Hellman has abstained.
Okay. So the vote is 7-1 with one abstention.
Sorry, I'm writing it real quick. City Planning Commission agenda for February 10th, 2022, as well as the minutes of January 13th, 2022.
Questions or comments? Agenda and minutes be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding Ohio Department of Natural Resources Nature Works Grant Program, Cargwell Historical Site Development Project.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding Reservoir Infrastructure Improvements, project number 357-82800.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
A letter from Mayor Mern regarding Dog Warden Services Agreement Renewal.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
Treasurer's Reconciliation Report for January 31st, 2022.
Questions or comments? Report be filed.
Summary financial reports as of, or for January 31st, 2022.
Questions or comments? Mr. Stasiak.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to draw your attention to the colorful page, the snapshot revenue, expenditures, and key balances projected page in your thing, particularly for the newer members here tonight. About midway through last year, I was in close conversation with Councilman Wobser, and I told him that there was a high likelihood we would end 2021 with our largest cash balance that we'd ever seen. And I expected at that point in time that it would exceed $20 to $21 million. And if you look at the very first line on this, your prior year ending cash balance when we closed the books for last year and closed the year completely did come out to $21,168,000. A large portion of that, as we know, is due to federal funds, Bureau of Workers' Comp in the prior 18 months that came through, windfalls in the business portion of the income tax. It is a phenomenal position to be in. The projections do not reflect that type of income tax in the business category coming in again this year. But it is noteworthy, and I thought it was worth taking a moment to share that with you and to see if you did have any questions regarding that cash balance moving forward. And I would also like to thank you as part of that statement for being prudent in your last meeting and passing the severance funds and setting them aside, severance funds for obligations we have incurred for employees who already work for the city. So at this point in time, in your next report, you will see the very last box on this form change significantly because you have fully funded those pension obligations as we know them today based on the budget situation and the known experience of our employees.
Mayor?
Jim, just real quick, can you confirm one thing, just because I want to make sure, on that spot level 21.1, off the top of my head, I can't recall. So you said that that was tied back to the windfall through the ARPA dollars. So that is all funds, since the ARPA fund dollars were put into a different fund, or is this just the general?
I didn't mention the ARPA at all. The ARPA dollars are in a totally separate fund. You have about $2.1 million that are sitting in the actual an ARPA fund. And there'll be, when they do the second distribution, an additional 2.1 and change that will end up in there. Ultimately, we'll end up with about $4.3 million in that fund when they do the second distribution. You have until 2024, so we don't have a rush to encumber that money, and I think then you have till the end of 2026 to spend it. Now, this is an accumulation of the federal dollars that came in, the windfalls in the business tax. It was just a super position to be in, and after we got through the recession, we really saw a reduced likelihood to see windfalls into our general fund. So, and when you say that, you know, the community used to talk about found money. Oh, they found money again. Oh, they found money again. Never found money ever. But in looking for it every day, I can tell you that we're very blessed. And with the prudence of you folks, the administration, and what we've done, we're in a wonderful situation moving into 2022. And again, if you have any questions outside of this meeting, I'm always happy to sit with you folks and talk to you about our situation. So thank you again.
Other questions or comments? Committee reports.
The Strategic Planning Committee met on February 1st, 2022 to discuss Community Outreach Committee meeting updates. We recommend continuing to move forward with the strategic planning process.
Mr. Weisner.
I attended that meeting, if that can be amended to guest for me.
Other questions or comments? Need a motion to accept the committee report. Mr. Greeno.
Motion to accept the committee report?
Thank you, sir. Second, Mr. Weisner. All those in favor of accepting the Strategic Planning Committee report as amended, please say aye. Those opposed, same sign. The committee report is accepted.
Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom is referred a request from Christy Montgomery on behalf of the Women's Resource Center to vacate Cypress Avenue from the first north-south alley east of Main Street from Laquinio Street to the north dead end. We recommend approval of the request.
Questions or comments? Motion to accept the committee report, Mr. Baumann. Second, Mr. Greeno. All in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Committee report is accepted.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the 2022 capital budget. We recommend to approve the capital budget as amended.
Questions or comments? Motion to accept the committee report, Mr. Greeno. Second, Ms. Warnicki. All those in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Committee report's accepted.
The Strategic Planning Committee met on February 10th, 2022 to review the existing conditions and trends outline document. We recommend to give changes to the document as discussed by the committee to Planning Next for inclusion and consideration.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Questions or comments? All in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The committee report is accepted. Legislation.
First reading for Resolution 6, 2022, A resolution transferring funds within appropriated funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
Yes, this is something that we've talked about. There's a real long lead time, like 42 weeks for these valves. So I would like to suspend the ordinance, or suspend the rules of council, and give this ordinance second and third reading so that we can get these ordered and get this project moving forward. And I believe this was a wastewater infrastructure grant that this money was coming from, so.
And we assume when you say ordinance, you're really speaking about
I'm-
Resolution 006-2022.
I am corrected, that is
Thank-
the resolution, yes, 006-2022.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second from Mr. Slough. All those in favor of suspending council's rules and giving this resolution its second and third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
And Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Council's rules are suspended, and this resolution will be given its second and third reading.
Resolution 6, 2022, Resolution 6, 2022.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of resolution number 006-2022.
Second, Mr. Weisner. Questions or comments? All those in favor of passing Resolution 006-2022, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
And Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Ordinances.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-006. An ordinance amending Chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code, by rezoning the following described property referred to as South Main Street, parcel number 62-0001022-082 rezone, which previously was zoned C2 General Commercial to M2 Multifamily High Density.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of ordinance 2022-006.
Second, Mr. Ballman. Questions or comments? All in favor of adoption of ordinance 2022-006, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-007. An ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain road right-of-way, hereinafter referred to as the Findlay Commerce Park 4th Edition Heartland Court right-of-way vacation in the City of Findlay, Ohio.
Mr. Slough.
Move for adoption of ordinance 2022-007.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Questions or comments? Those in favor of approval of ordinance 2022-007, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer. Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Weisner.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
And Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2022-10, an ordinance amending Part 15 of the Fire Prevention Code, repealing ordinance 2000-011 of the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio. First reading for ordinance 2022-11, an ordinance amending Section 22 of codified ordinance number 2021-116, known as the salary ordinance of the City of Findlay, Ohio, and repealing all other ordinances and/or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith of the City of Findlay, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Next.
First reading for ordinance 2022-12. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or service safety director of the City of Findlay, Ohio, to sign any applicable grant agreement or agreements or related documents for the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Nature Works Grant Program, Cargwell Historical Site Development Project, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
Since this is grant money that we're going after, I would like to have the statutory rules of council suspended for ordinance number 2022-012,
And have this given its second and third reading?
and have it give its second, third reading.
Thank you.
Yes.
Second, Mr. Ballman. All those in favor of suspending council's rules and giving ordinance 2022-012 its second and third reading, please say aye. Aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
And Mr. Niemeyer.
Council's rules have been suspended, and this ordinance will be given its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2022-012, ordinance 2022-012.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-012.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Questions or comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 2022-012, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. And Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2022-013, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director of the City of Findlay, Ohio to enter into a contract with the Board of Commissioners of Hancock County, Ohio for dog warden services in the City of Findlay, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mayor, Rob, is this something that, seeing as though we're already getting the services, this needs to be done tonight, or?
I don't think it needs to be expedited, but it's a routine item, so if you could, that would be great.
Okay. Because this is really we're already getting services from the dog warden, and the Hancock County Commissioners have been in agreement with this, as the mayor said, ordinary routine. So I will make the motion to suspend council statutory rules and give 2022-013 its second and third reading. Second, Mr. Ballman. All those in favor of suspending council's rules and giving this ordinance its second and third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
And Mr. Russell.
Aye. Council statutory rules have been suspended, and this ordinance will be given its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2022-013, ordinance 2022-013.
Ms. Warnicki.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-013.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Questions or comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 2022-013, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno? Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Mr. Slough.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2022-014, an ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain alley hereinafter referred to as the Cypress Avenue Vacation in the City of Findlay, Ohio.
Old business. New business. Mayor?
I promise to be brief. First of all, I noticed that everybody else got an opportunity to actually like first or second something when Grant and Jeff were both either not here or busy. So maybe we should implement a 2-second delay for both of them since they normally take over everything.
Thank you for your comment. I'll adjourn this meeting.
Meeting adjourned. Got the hook. Thank you for attending the CASC meeting. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I think we're stepping in the right direction on a couple of fronts, and so hopefully the community recognizes that and we'll be able to resolve. Certainly we'll continue to work with the Sheriff's Office to address some of the community concerns over there as best we can help with that. Additionally, I know a lot of you were able to attend the Capitol meeting. For those that were not, please make sure to flip through your binders, look through the next couple of years. We have a lot of great things planned. Would love for you to have some thoughts on that. As well as kind of for planning purposes. We'll definitely be talking about that moving forward. And then for the community as a whole, we have a lot of projects planned for this year. So the team's doing a great job, proud of the planning steps that we're taking, and I think a lot of great things going on. The other item I just wanted to mention related to the dog warden, additional information will come out about it, but I know a couple of you had previously mentioned, and I had mentioned that we were working to address some of the feral cat issues around town. So we have provided some additional monies out of my budget to the dog warden to be able to go into neighborhoods and do spay and neutering of cats, as well as get some of the sick cats off the streets. So just wanted to let you know we are addressing that as well. And I apologize for looking at I'll come back to you, promise, for looking at my watch drain. Obviously, we're currently watching the weather for potential flooding later this week, tied back to it's going to heat up tomorrow, which is great. However, it's going to cause a lot of the snow to melt quickly, and we're going to get potentially a couple inches of rain over the next couple of days. So we are watching that closely. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll know a little bit more based off of how quickly the storm is moving to see how much rain we get. If we only get about 1.25 to 1.5 inches of rain, we'll be all right, probably about a 9-foot storm event. If we get full 2 inches, then we're looking probably at 11 feet. And then if we get anything beyond that, then we'll have above 11 feet. As a reminder, that impacts primarily roads. We don't start seeing a whole lot of impact to property until the 15-foot mark. So we still have some room, which is great. That's really due to the mitigation efforts that have been taken so far, the benefit of the benching, but still keeping a close eye on that, and we'll communicate to the public as necessary. Councilman Slough. Feral cats, the joys and the variety of things I deal with on a daily basis.
What the hell is going on with these feral cats? I mean, I get calls all the time on.
You.
I don't know what you do.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, it's been a buildup over time, folks feeding them, kind of letting them run loose. We've had a buildup in a couple of neighborhoods. So I know the Humane Society, I've spoke with them kind of regarding a press release, educating people, like, don't feed the cats, don't let your cat run out and, get involved with the street cats, those are basic sex ed, I guess. But, I think, so what they're doing is going out, gathering them, tagging if they're ill, taking care of them humanely, and then spaying and neutering, and then over time they kind of stop populating and they kind of weed themselves out. So that is the current plan, and hopefully that helps. It's not going to be, an overnight fix, but we do recognize it's an issue, and are taking steps to try to mitigate it.
I thought I was the only one that got calls like that.
No, we're doing what we can, so appreciate it.
But when they remove them from the neighborhood, do they then return them?
Currently, that is my understanding of the process, because it's the Humane Society, so they're trying to, deal with it in a humane fashion.
Is that by states? If they're returning them, that's under the assumption that there's a house that quote unquote owns them. If they're not owned by anybody, who are they returning them to?
The streets. At this point, they're returning them to the streets, and I question them on that as well. I don't believe it is a state statute. I believe that is the standard operating procedure, but I'd be happy to find out if there is some sort of requirement for them to do that.
I'm in Mr. Slough's camp that talking to some neighborhoods, and one in particular that's near the auditor. He and I have talked about this, and that it's an unbelievable situation, and that was one of the feedbacks from the neighborhood, that at some point in time cats had been removed and then had been returned, and that doesn't quite make a lot of sense. And if that's the case, are we getting the value out of this service? I mean, can we ask them to remove them and then run them through their adoption process?
I will go back to them with that request from council, because I have similar feelings and had expressed that, but I will take that back and report back to you all.
I mean, just out of curiosity, if it was a larger cat, I mean, in other states you can see, Colorado will have the mountain lion. Would they return the mountain lion to the neighborhood? Obviously not. So I just, there's not a lot of logic in this. And at what point in time does the health department become involved in these situations? And I know we've had conversations about the NEAT process or zoning working and being connected up better with the health department. But quite honestly, if you go through these neighborhoods, this is a health issue based simply on odor.
Yeah. I don't know any specific guidelines on when the health department would be called in unless a neighborhood specifically requested that and how they would go about managing it. But I'll get some more clarity on that for you all. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Yes, I'd be happy to distribute the slides.
Yeah, I asked Candace, she said she would be sending them out, and we'll have them also included as part of the committee of the whole records.
Perfect.
Other new business questions or comments for the good of the order? Seeing those, Mr. Niemeyer.
Well, you know, I think in the whole state of Ohio, hunting season was prolonged because of deer. Just an idea.
Any other intelligent questions or comments? Motion for adjournment. Ms. Warnicki, second. Mr. Palmer, all in favor, other than any of us being adjourned, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Have a great evening, folks.